excuse me, everyone. I like to say, first of all, that I am not an entertainer. So naturally, I'm not a comedian. So I didn't expect to elicit this kind of cheers from you. I mean, there's a classroom. We are here to learn, and that is my primary purpose of being here. So what I advise you is to give your attention to me because our time is limited. When it is time for laughter, you have it. I will not be the one who give it to you. There are people trained for that. But for now, our purpose of being here is to learn. It is unnatural for me to teach with a public address system in one of my hands, but I'm going to manage to do so because of the crowd of people that we have here. So I'll start by telling us that what we are having is an ongoing discussion. We were already having this lesson in another class before we were asked to come over here to join you. So I'm going to do what I can for permit those of us who have joined here to be a part of the discussion. We are talking about Concord. Concord. It is not a strange topic in English language, but it's a very important one. Good. Now, why is Concord important? It is because many of the mistakes that we make in English language derive from the incorrect use of verbs. I had already told my previous class that the verb is the most important part of speech. English language is not a difficult subject to learn if you understand the parts of speech. That was why, as early as our primary school, our English language teachers began to teach us about the parts of speech, the nouns, the pronouns, the adjectives, and the adverbs, the prepositions and conjunctions, and the rest of them. 7 parts of speech in all. Now, if you've learned the parts of speech, that is the 7 classes into which all words that we use in English language are divided. So that means that every English word falls into one or more of these 7 groups. Because you can use a word as a noun in one sentence and use it as an adverb in another and use it as an adjective in another. So that word, perhaps with its forms changing, can perform one function or the other in the different sentences where it is used. If you've learned how to use the parts of speech, then you understand what we mean by the word grammar, so you become a grammarian. Now, to be a grammarian is not something difficult. It simply implies that you understand English words in such a way that you know which word to use, the right word, and at the right time to use it, and at the right place to use the word. Then you are a grammarian. You are able to manipulate the English words the way that you like, and you are still able to make sense when you speak and write. So grammar means to know the right words, to use the right words at the right places and at the right time. So when we are in an English language class, we talk about sentence structure. We talk about where the nominal items are to be used in a sentence. Nouns and pronouns are nominal items. The items that we use as subjects and objects that we use as complements, that we use as appositives, are nominal items. Their equivalents are a group of words that we use for such purposes, and we call them clauses and phrases. So we can talk about a noun clause, and we can talk about a noun phrase, which is used in the same grammatical capacity as a noun. That means it can function as a subject, function as an object, and these are the functions that nouns perform in sentences. Now, if you've learned all of these, grammar, then you have learned English. It doesn't mean you can speak it just because you learned grammar, but you've learned English. You've learned the rules governing the use of words in the language. But you now still need to accumulate enough vocabulary. So you begin to read to build up the number of words whose meanings you understand and which you can use effectively when you're speaking and writing. The other aspect of English, phonetics, being able to pronounce English words like native speakers, come gradually. You don't learn it in a day. That is why only a small section of the English paper is reserved to phonetics. And in Nigeria, we started writing exams on phonetics not many years ago now. It wasn't important before. But even now, it's not an important part of this. You can still make your credit in English language if you do not do the part of the paper that has to do with phonetics. So you learn gradually as you speak, as you listen to native speakers and listen to others who are near to native speaker fluency. Your phonetics improves gradually. But the most important aspect of language is grammar. And grammar has to do with parts of speech, and the most important part of speech is the verb, because no sentence can be made in English without a verb. That is why most of the mistakes that we make, that we refer to as grammatical blunders, derive from the incorrect use of verbs. I want to make a sentence for us. Now, if we have a sentence which reads, now, we have a sentence on the board. It says, Janet Baker lives at village across the hill. In this sentence, we are trying to illustrate what we mean by Concord. But before we talk about this sentence further, let's answer the question, what is Concord? We'll use the word agreement when we're talking about Concord. So we now ask agreement with what? Agreement of what? The words used in a sentence have to agree. The agreement occurs in number, agreement of number, or agreement of person, and sometimes both. In this sentence, the subject is Janet Baker. It is singular number. The verb is lives. It is singular number. So we can say that there is a sequence of number between the subject and the verb. There is number agreement. The rule of Concord requires that if the subject is singular, the verb should be singular, except when there is a reason why this is not the case. Otherwise, a singular subject should be followed by a singular verb, and then a plural subject should be followed by a plural verb. But there is a point of confusion that I would like to clarify before we go too far away. It's about number and person. Number and person. Good. Now, number in grammar simply means one or more than one. We say singular number or plural number. And it relates to nouns that are used in sentences. But this number also affects the verb in the sentence, because if the subject changes, the verb will change. The verb doesn't change before the subject. The subject carries the verb along. So if the verb continues to be plural, then we'll have a string of plural verbs going along with it. But if the subject continues to be singular, we also have a stream or a string of singular verbs going along with it. Now, if I ask you, what is the plural of girl? You will easily say girls, am I right? You add an S. Now we say this is a plural marker. The letter S, when we add it to a singular noun to make it plural, is called a plural marker. We all understand that this is generally generally, this is generally how English nouns make their plural, by adding an S. Generally means most of the times. So we understand that there are exceptions, so that axe or box becomes boxes or axes. Am I right? So we add ES. But these are exceptions. The general rule is you put an S to girl or any singular noun to make it plural. Now, if I say that leaves is singular, some people will say, how come? If leaves is singular, then there shouldn't be an S. Well, the fact is that nouns and verbs do not make their singular number and plural number in the same way. We've talked about how nouns make their plural number. But we're not discussing nouns, we're talking about verbs. And we're talking about verbs in the third person. Third person. That means there is a first person, there is a second person, and there is a third person. From number to persons. When we use pronouns instead of nouns, we now talk about persons. The persons are actually the same nouns that we know about. So if I will not use Janet Baker, I'll use she. Am I right? So she is a third person, and Janet Baker, the noun, is a third person. Third person noun, third person pronoun. And if I will not use Jim Ike in a sentence, I'll say he. Then he is the third person pronoun, while Jim Ike is the third person noun. Good. Now, if I will not say this hall is large, I will say it is large. So it is the third person pronoun for something that is not a person. It is large, the house is large, it is large. Now these are third person pronouns used instead of third person nouns. If any of these three becomes plural, we can talk about third person plural, which is there. They are here. It is why you will not say that Lillian and James have gone to the mall, and then you say he and she have gone to the mall. No. Rather than say he and she have gone to the mall, you say they have gone to the mall. So you convert he and she to they, because it is non-plural. Now, let's take a look at what we're saying again. Now, as the speaker, I am the first person. I'll use the pronoun I. And if the speaker becomes plural, I changes to we. You are the one I am talking to, so I'll use the pronoun you. If I were talking to this girl alone, I would say, you are an interesting audience. You are. But if I am talking to everyone, I will still say, you are. But this time, I will say interesting audience instead of an interesting audience that I use for the singular you. So you is both singular and plural. But the verb it takes is the same. In this case, it is the pronoun as subject that determines whether the verb is singular or plural. So with one person, you is singular. With more than one, you is plural. But the verb remains the same, usually a plural verb. The same applies to I and we. Good. Now, if I say, I return home late every evening, I return home late every evening, I'll use the same return for we. We return home late every evening. It is only different with the verb to be, where I'll use am for I and are for we. But with other verbs, I and we use the same verb. But that verb is singular with I and plural with we. So in this case, it is the subject that determines whether the verb is singular or plural, the person of the subject. Our discussion on Concord principally is about the third person. And we are referring to sentences made in the present, that is simple present. In the simple present tense, verbs that are used with the third person singular, he, she, or he, or it, must end with a final S. So we will say, she thinks we are insane. Or he thinks we are insane. He thinks we are insane. Good. Now, if the subject changes from any of these third person and becomes plural, then the S will go. So now say, we think. And incidentally, this subject will be shared by I, we, and you. In the present tense, a verb that we use for the third person plural is often shared by the first person, singular and plural, and the second person, singular and plural. So it is often the third person that have it differently. The third person pronouns that have it differently. Our class resumes early tomorrow morning. Our class resumes early tomorrow morning. My class resumes early tomorrow morning. My class. But then I will say, I resume, not resumes anymore. I resume early tomorrow morning. We resume early tomorrow morning. You resume early tomorrow morning. They resume early tomorrow morning. She resumes early. He resumes early. It resumes early. Are we making a sense here? Very good. Now let us go on. So we are talking about rule 1. And we have a sentence. Someone has a question? All right. First question says, sir, introduce yourself. I just pray we should refrain from asking a question like that. Like introduce yourself. We can do that at the field. They are outside the class if it's important. The other one is a better question. It says, sir, we don't understand you. So we're going to find out why you don't understand me. And we're going to trash that out, but my name is Ogochukwu Onoha. For the person who wanted an introduction, may I say that again? My name is Ogochukwu. That's an Igbo name. And the surname is Onoha, Ogochukwu Onoha. That is clear. And then, all right, the third question says, can you explain in detail the use of has, have, and had? Yes, we will explain in detail because it is a part of what we are discussing on Concord. Let us take a second sentence, for instance. Shall we pay attention, please? Shall we pay attention? Now, these sentences are meant to answer the question on how to use has, have, and had. First of all, in the present tenses, these are the forms. Has for the third person, singular, he, she, or it. Has, she has, he has, it has. Then, in the same present, has changes to have. If you use I, we, you, or they. And with each of these pronouns, have is either singular or plural. It is singular with I, singular or plural with you, plural with we, and plural with they. In the past tense, there is no concord. All take had. I had, we had, you had, he had, she had, it had, they had. I hope the point is clear now. Very good. Now, the first rule of concord relates to subject and verb. I've underlined the verbs. The subjects come before the verbs. We're trying to make our sentences simple enough so that it will be easy for you to understand. I haven't said that the subject must be the first word in your sentence. It can be anywhere. But at least you understand that it is that noun form in a sentence that relates with the verb because it either performs the action of the verb or it is the person or thing which the condition that the verb expresses applies to. That is the subject of a sentence. And in these examples, Janet, Becca, I, we, she, Basil, and Bola are the subjects. Each of them has a verb that agrees with it in number and person. Lives, have, has, and then had. Do you have any question on that? If there are no questions, we can now talk about the subject-object. Rule 2. I would like to dictate something you can all write before we take our examples on the board. With indefinite pronouns, such as everyone, everything, anyone, anybody, somebody, nobody, no one, none, nothing, each, etc. The object must be singular. The object must be singular. Example 1. The sentence says, everyone is advised to bring his or her logbook to the exam hall. Everybody is advised to bring his or her logbook to the exam hall. Logbook. Now contrast this second sentence. It says, everybody is advised to bring their logbooks to the exam hall. Take this example, singular book, his logbook, her logbook, his or her. And then we convert his or her to their. And then this becomes logbooks. Both sentences are correct, but the second one is more informal. The first one is more formal. The formal sentence is a more standard English. The informal sentence is a more casual English. That is the one you can use if you're having a conversation with your friends, and speaking grammar correctly is not important. You are having a conversation. It's a casual discussion. You can say everybody is advised to bring their logbooks to the exam hall. But in formal writing, especially in an exam situation, and you are given options, his or her is correct. Their is incorrect in an exam hall. But it is correct as informal English. You can say it anywhere, but not in a formal situation. If you are writing a speech to be presented on an occasion, and you need to make a sentence like this, it should have his or her. The reason why many speakers prefer using their is because it becomes monotonous, boring to use his or her, because as you make subsequent sentences after saying his or her, you say he or she, and then again his or her, he or she. So because of that, using their and their solves the problem. So because of that, when we engage in our everyday conversations, we prefer using their, so his or her. Everyone, everybody, anybody. These are called indefinite pronouns because they don't refer to anybody or anything in particular, and they are always singular. So if they are used directly as a subject, you have singular verbs like is or has been, like we have put it here, has been asked. So in this example, has been asked agrees with each in person. And when we use each, usually it introduces a noun which is also singular. Each person, each pupil, each man, each woman, each thing, and so on and so forth. It is also correct to say each of. Each of. When this is the case, a plural subject follows. Each of, meaning one at a time out of many. So what follows is a plural noun. It says, each of the reports, they're submitted. Each of the reports they're submitted contains few facts. Now take a look at the sequence of number. Each, because each is the subject of the sentence. We now talk about contains, but not contain. But reports is plural because it refers to all the reports. But we're talking about one out of all of them. And so the verb contains, which is singular, agrees with each number. It says, each of the reports they're submitted contains few facts. Sometimes when we use each, the verb is plural instead of singular. But this is the case if there is a pronoun before each, and the pronoun is plural. They each. It says, they each have, but not has. They each have received a share of their grandfather's estate. In this example, have received agrees with they, but not with each. They each means all of them and each of them, each of all of them. We say they each. They each with have received, agreeing in number with they, but not with each. So if a plural pronoun is used before each, the verb is plural. It agrees with that pronoun. But if each is used alone, the verb is singular, like we have it here. Sentence 5 says, Gwen, please, this is Gwen, Gwen, says, Gwen prefers a sunbird. In this example, Gwen, a singular noun and subject of the sentence, agrees in number with prefers. Gwen prefers a sunbird, but we each want. So the verb want agrees with we, which is plural and the subject here. But we each want a visit to the lagoon. Now let's talk about the third rule, rule 3, mandative subjunctive, Concord. I want to dictate something you can write down, and then we continue. Are you ready to go on? Good. If prayer, comma, suggestion, demand, if prayer, suggestion, demand, recommendation, wish, prescription, command, or order is made. Command or order is made. Command or order is made. O-R-D-E-R, order. Command or order is made, comma. The verb is usually plural. The verb is usually plural. The verb is usually plural, irrespective irrespective of whether the subject is singular or plural. Irrespective of whether the subject is singular or plural. Irrespective of whether the subject is singular or plural. Example 1. We pray that God help us pass this exam. 2. The judge demands that court attendees be absolutely silent. Be absolutely silent. Number 3 says, the doctor recommends. The doctor recommends that the patient take the drug daily. That the patient take the drug daily. Mrs. Adeline wishes that Sam travel unaccompanied. Five, please, I request that you listen while I speak. Number 6, judge insists that Maria return home as agreed. I'd like us to take a look at the verbs that I have underlined in these sentences, beginning with number 1. It says, we pray that God help. Normally, in English grammar, a singular noun like God, we go with helps in the simple present. God helps those who call upon his name. God helps those, but not God help, because God is singular. But then if we use a verb like pray, or demand, or recommend, or wish, and some other such verbs, or words that suggest an imperative, suggesting a command or an order, usually the verb that follows the subject is a plural one. We pray that God help us, but not we pray that God helps us. And then we have the judge demands that that court attendees be. Be is the infinitive form of the verb to be. The singular form, the singular present form of be will be am or is, and the plural are. In the past form was or were. But it is the infinitive form that's been used here because it is an order, a command. The judge demands that the court attendees be absolutely silent. And then we have the doctor recommends that the patient take. Normally we say the patient takes. But in this case, because of recommends, we have the patient take the drug dearly. Mrs. Adlin wishes that some travel, but not some travels, that some travel unaccompanied. Please, I request that you listen while I speak. Judge insists that Maria return, but not Maria returns. The Maria return here, return home as agreed. May I have your question? All right. Someone says he or she cannot see what's written on the board clearly. I understand that some of us who are far away from this point may find what is written on the board blurred. If this is the case, you listen because I try to read the sentences that I have written. For instance, beginning with number 1 here, we have, we pray that God help us pass this exam. The other one, 2, says, the judge demands that court attendees is A-T-T-E-N-D-E-E-S. Attendees be absolutely silent. And then we have, the doctor recommends that the patient take the drug dearly. Mrs. Adlin wishes that some travel unaccompanied. Please, I request that you listen while I speak. Judge insists that Maria return home as agreed. I recall that someone said he or she didn't understand me at first. That request is still here. So we don't understand. Please, may I hear from you again? Has the understanding improved? Has it improved now? In that case, please tell us exactly what area of what we are doing you do not understand, so we know exactly how to go about tackling it. What? The third rule? Someone said the third rule, which is the one we're talking about now, mandative subjunctive Concord. You see, it's an aspect of Concord. We're just mentioning them. Each of them is quite large. For instance, we are talking about the subjunctive mood here. And we're talking about that which is mandative. Mandative also means, it means imperative. When something is imperative in English, then we mean it's a kind of command, a kind of order. Good. So if you want to give an order to someone, you should say something like, I demand that you remain quiet, but not I demand that you remain quiet, something of that nature. Or I demand that he remain. So all subjects take a verb that is plural in number, whether the subject is singular or plural. However, if you do not say I demand, your construction will be quite different. You may just issue an order directly and say keep quiet, and that is understandable. Good. And then someone might interpret or report what you said by saying she told him to keep quiet, something of that nature. But if that order comes directly from you and you say, I request, I demand, I pray, I wish that you, that he, that she, that they. You understand what I mean? Then the verb that follows has to be a plural one. That's exactly what we're talking about here. Good. We are still going to talk about the subjunctive mood alone some other time when we have more time to do so. So there are strings of questions here. It says, what is the difference between there, and they? That's the first one. What's the difference between there, and they? The first difference is that they are pronounced differently. And the second difference is that they are spelled differently. And the third difference is that they have different meanings. For instance, this is a pronoun. I already pointed out that it is a plural of he, she, and it. And it is used in a sentence as subject. When it is an object, it changes to them. You understand? Good. And this is an adjective and becomes a pronoun if you add an S to it. Our house is big. Our house is big. Theirs is smaller comparatively. That's not what that means. Pronoun. Our house is big, but theirs is smaller. Theirs meaning their house. Theirs is a pronoun. When you don't want to say their own, which is cumbersome. If you said theirs, you don't need to say their own, because theirs means their own. Our house is big, their own is small. No. If you say our house is big, but theirs is smaller, you've said it all. You don't need to say their own, because theirs means that which belongs to them, which implies their own. Then the other, the same, when it is their but not theirs, I've said that theirs is a pronoun form, but their is the adjective form or adjectival form. You use it in front of a noun to show who the noun belongs to. Their house, their car. You see that? Good. Their house is among the largest in the village. The house that belongs to them. Their, an adverb, a demonstrative adverb. An adverb that is used to point out something, point out a noun. So you can say, there is. We are talking about something. There has been, singular. There have been. There has been an issue going on in that family for some time now. Every night we hear a quarrel between the man and his wife. There has been an issue. Remember that issue is singular. So there has been an issue. There have been issues, singular, that's plural of issues. There have been issues going on in my great-grandfather's family since he died. We've been having repeated meetings since after his burial. There have been issues. You see the difference now? Very good. Now, there are other questions. It says, we don't understand your language. Which language will you have me speak? German or French? I thought this was supposed to be an English language class. So the question says, we don't understand your language. Well, I don't know how to solve such a problem. What is the singular of be as used in the example 2, rule 3? Example 2, rule 3 is this. What is the singular of be? Be is the infinitive. The infinitive without to. It is called to be. To be. An infinitive, when it doesn't have to, as it is used here, is called a bare infinitive. So be is a bare infinitive. When it has to in front of it, it becomes a to infinitive. most verbs have an infinitive. For instance, the infinitive to go, the infinitive to eat, the infinitive to walk, and so on and so forth. When we use the verb along with a modal auxiliary verb. Does anyone know what a modal auxiliary verb means? Can someone give us just one example? Can anyone give us just one example of a modal auxiliary verb? So we have no idea. Now, take the verb may and can and will and shall and ought and others. There are 12 modal verbs in all. Now, if you use a modal verb with an infinitive, the to goes, what remains is called a bare infinitive. So we say, you may go alone, but not you may to go. And you will say, can I eat? Noun. You can eat the sausage. Later in the day, you can eat, but not you to eat. Good, good. Now you say, I will walk the children to school, but not I will to work. Good. However, if you use a lexical verb, that's the verbs that are non-modal, a verb like wish, want, ask, and many other such verbs, then you have to use a to infinitive. So now say, I wish to go to the cinema, but not I wish go. I wish to go to the cinema. She wants to eat some hamburger. He asks to walk the children to school and all that. Good. So these are infinitives, and be is an infinitive, but it is a bare form, a bare infinitive. You ask for the singular. The singular of to be in the present tense is am, and then is. But the singular in the past tense is was. The plural in the present is are. The plural in the past form is were. And then the past participle is been, and the present participle is being. This is the complete conjugation if you add to be to it. That is 8 forms in all. Yes. She says she may have to go to school tomorrow. Is the sentence correct? Yes. It says she may have to go. I mean, someone is speaking about she, and the speaker is talking about probability. She may have to go to school tomorrow means she possibly will go to school tomorrow. She probably will go to school tomorrow. In all likelihood, she will go to school tomorrow. She is likely to go to school tomorrow. All these sentences express a likelihood or a probability that something may or may not happen. When anything is probable, then you may speak as you have done. She may have to. All right, that was the last question there. So we may now move on from where we stopped. Please, let's write. Many a. Many a is an expression. Many a. Many a is an expression which has the meaning of each of, which has the meaning of each of each of. Full stop. It actually means many. It actually means many. It actually means many. Although emphasis is laid, although emphasis is laid on one of the many. Although emphasis is laid on one of the many. Although emphasis is laid on one of the many. Full stop. As a result, comma, as a result, comma, many a must be followed by a singular, must be followed by a singular noun, must be followed by a singular noun and the singular verb. Must be followed by a singular noun and a singular verb. Must be followed by a singular noun and a singular verb. Example. In the park, many a tourist. In the park, many a tourist has no sunshade. Has no sunshade under which to sit. In the park, many a tourist has no sunshade under which to sit. Number 2, many a problem. Many a problem is besetting. Many a problem is besetting that family. Many a problem. Number 3, in this Yuletide, many a shirt costs a fortune. In this Yuletide, many a shirt costs a fortune. For Abigail said that many a young man nowadays thinks that marriage is expensive. Number 5, there is many an issue left unsettled. There is many an issue left unsettled. Thank you. It says, there is many an issue left unsettled in our law courts. Now let's take a close examination of these sentences that use the expression many a. Like I said earlier on, many a simply means many.